moved to Williamsburg in 1989. We knew, more and more people who were moving in, other artists who had lived in, the East Village, in Hoboken, wherever, and they needed space to work, so they were moving to other industrial buildings. I moved there because my partner's ex-girlfriend was living in a loft in downtown Brooklyn with two other artists, two men, and they were thrown out because Chase Manhattan Bank decided to build their headquarters there, and so they took over the entire block. So my friends had to leave and started looking around and found this place in Williamsburg, and then my partner wanted to move, and she's a painter and needed a studio, and I had been living in Chinatown in a tenement building and had to rent a studio separately to edit. And so I also wanted more space to work in. It was a very friendly neighborhood. Certainly there weren't the amenities that there were later, and coming from Manhattan, I remember saying early on, it'd be really great if there was a sushi restaurant here. And after about 6 years of living there, a sushi bar opened, and I was really excited, and then I thought, uh-oh, if there's a sushi bar, everything is going to follow it. What I know is that even in the late 80s and the early 90s, city government was interested in seeing what was going on with the waterfront. And so they had a team research the entire Brooklyn waterfront, not just Williamsburg. And that group issued a report to the city which said, industry is alive and well, everything's good. Maybe there could be improvement or whatever, but basically it's really going well. And the city didn't want to hear that. The city saw the waterfront, the fantastic views of Manhattan. They already had this idea that it should be developed for residential. Really only a couple of months after the rezoning that I started filming, because it happened so quickly. They announced it one day in the paper, and the next day the walls were going up and the buildings were going down and the developers were, running around. When you have a commercial lease, you have no protection. There's no rent stabilization, there's no rent control. So anybody in an industrial building was always prey to increased rents. But with this, there was no stopping the landlords from making the rents crazy and pushing the remaining industries out, and then building luxury housing. I think it's a cautionary tale and also a love letter. I really loved the neighborhood. I loved where we lived. When I was editing, 2.5 years after we had moved out, I was still editing the film, and I was looking at footage one day of the green building across the street from us being torn down, and I burst into tears. I thought, this is so great, this is such a long time after we've left, but you don't easily forget a place that you lived in for 20 years. It will happen in other neighborhoods. It is already happening. I mean, in January, the mayor announced the plan for Greenpoint. These 5 towers designed by the person who did Trump Tower. Unbelievable taking over of this area, and even saying things like, we're going to create a new Greenpoint community. And all the people in Greenpoint were saying, but we are already a community. We don't need you to make us a community. I don't know if there's a future for artists in New York, and I am horrified even saying that.